We acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we meet today, the Wurundjeri people, part of the Kulin Nation. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples.
Welcome, Nyibol, to the third episode of the African-Australian Conversations podcast. This podcast aims to change the negative stereotypes that we hear about the African-Australian community, and through individual stories like yours, we are hoping to educate the broader Australian community and change these negative stereotypes. So thank you for joining us today to hear your individual story.
Well, first of all, I'd just like to say thank you, Kwame, for having me here. So my name is Nyibol Gatlwak. I am 34 years old. I arrived in Australia as a refugee from Kakuma refugee camp in 1999, where my family settled in the western suburbs of Melbourne. So that's a little bit about my story and how I came to this country.
We often hear that part of the problem within the African migrant communities is conflict between the older generation and the younger generation. Younger people, they want to behave like, their colleagues, the Australian colleagues, their friends. They want to go out with them. They want to do things that their friends do in order to feel accepted and normal. And this creates conflicts in families. Have you experienced this in your own life?
Yes. So I came to Australia at the age of 8, not speaking a word of English. So going to primary school, I did 2 years of my primary school here in Australia before I went to high school. A lot of the challenges that I had with my mum, because she was a single parent of seven kids, was just my sense of identity. So meeting my friends who come from a different, diverse background, and then my cultural expectations. We had a lot of pushback with my mom because I couldn't understand why I wasn't able to hang out with my friends, why my brothers were more allowed to go out and I was restricted. So there was a lot of cultural clashes that I have, like in terms of my identity, who am I? As well as respecting my culture. So that had a lot of issues. But growing up, I kind of realized now that my identity, I was struggling with it because it wasn't defined that I was not just a South Sudanese cultured girl. I also had my identity going to school and meeting my friends and knowing who I am and what my potentials are. So that was a struggle at the start. But now I kind of see where our parents were coming from in terms of their upbringing. They can only raise us from what they know. Mm-hmm. So looking back now, I could see where they come from.
Okay. And do you believe that you've negotiated this conflict very well, and that now you are able to blend your Sudanese identity with your Australian identity?
Yes, definitely. First of all, is finding your own identity and your sense of belonging in this world in order to know who you are and be comfortable and content. Therefore, then you show up as that person. Mm-hmm. If it's in your family, if it's in your workplace, if it's with your friends. So knowing who you are is very important because I find that within my community, and just being around and traveling to the Northern Territory, because my identity is not South Sudanese or just Australian. My early 20s I spent actually in the remote Indigenous communities. So I lived in Alice Springs. the APY lands,
Wow.
out bush, Darwin.
Okay.
So it was a collective experiences of who I am today.
Okay.
So sitting with my community, sitting with my aunties and explaining to them that your daughter or your son is not really being a rebel, it's because you don't understand. And just having that dialogue of like, hey, mom, this is who I am. I understand that our practices were like this and this is how you grew up. But it's almost like balancing of cultures and yeah, understanding and just having a relationship.
Good. Well, you describe yourself as a social worker and a mental health advocate. Tell us exactly what you do in this role.
So I've worked in the community service sector for 12 years. Majority of that time has been in the Northern Territory in my early 20s. So I worked in Alice Springs and Outbush in Armada, in Dalkana and Mimili, where I worked as a family mental health support worker, where we do like early intervention with like Indigenous families, especially around children ending up in the department. So we do the early intervention, trying to educate families and especially young mothers in caring for their children around neglect and abuse to prevent child protection intervention. So a lot of that and a lot of my experience and my passion for community service and mental health was working in the Northern Territory, understanding the Indigenous like history and how they came about. But the most thing that stuck with me was trauma and vicarious trauma and how that related to me. So working out in the Northern Territory actually taught me more about myself, more about how my community had come to Australia and how we are still struggling with trauma and mental health and how that presents in my community. So when I returned to Melbourne, I was like, all right, yeah, it's time for me to like start coming into the community, understanding what is going on, why are these issues occurring, and then just dig further and just figure out what is going on here.
Okay. So what attracted you to go and work in the Indigenous communities rather than your own community to start with?
It was actually by accident. So not really by accident. I finished year 12. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I had friends who were physios in the Alice Springs Hospital. I was supposed to go there for 6 months. 6 months almost turned into nearly 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was just meant to be like an experience, work, get money, travel. But then I just got sucked in to the rich culture, and then just like the elders taking me out bush, teaching us their traditional ways. And like I was so fortunate that I was able to go into the women business and their ceremonies, which hit me so much. And I, instead of going there as a worker, I came out learning more about myself than for me to go. Imagine for me to go there to think I'm doing a job. I've learned more about me and who I am through them.
So in your 12 years experience working as a social worker and a mental health advocate, what do you see are some of the common mental health challenges within the African Australian community?
You know what I see? Because when we first came here in 1999, there was probably like in the western suburbs, I can't speak of everywhere else, maybe like 2 African families that you'd see. If you see someone in the bus, you'd want to follow them and be like, where are you from? Like you won't see it. You never like see an African person around.
Yes.
But the more refugees that started coming into the country,
Yes.
The more families that come, the more issues that arise. Australia is my home.
Yes.
Like it took me to go to South Sudan to realize I just speak Dinka. There's nothing South Sudanese about me, because I'm like, I was so when I like who I am is I'm a South Sudanese Australian.
Yes.
So when more South Sudanese families started coming here as refugees, we really appreciated the Australian government for physically bringing us here and we're safe. But what people came with is they came with PTSD. They came with trauma. Like parents have seen horrific things. So as the time goes by, the issues start to the actual problems start to like emerge, and you see it in the alcohol abuse. You see like a lot of the males getting incarcerated. There were
Yes.
unaddressed issues that were there at the whole time.
Yes.
So in my community, you don't have like your house and then your next door neighbor, your auntie. Everybody lived in a village. So if your mom doesn't care, just say if your mom is unable to deal with the issues, your uncle is right there or your auntie is there. So I used to get in trouble, think I'll run to my auntie's house. I'd be in trouble. Just stay like everyone is collectively there supporting you. But when we come here, you don't have the same support network. So
Yes.
it's very isolated.
Yes.
And then you see all these mental health issues that were not addressed.
Well, I think that is one of the positive aspects of our culture back home. I mean, I grew up in a village, and if I went out and as a kid misbehaved, the neighbor next door will get hold of me,
Yeah.
belt me up, and then drag me home
Yeah.
and tell my parents that, look, we caught your son misbehaving and, we've disciplined him. And then on top of that, my parents will
Go.
also discipline me for
Yeah.
being a wayward child. Yeah. Yeah, look, I've been in Australia for quite a number of years now. And in that time, I've become aware that the stigma about mental health is changing. And do you think that within the African Australian community, stigma about mental health and trauma is equally changing?
I could just answer that as in we are just scratching the surface of mental health and the stigma, especially within my own community. Like just me talking about it in my own household. Like I would tell my mom, maybe someone is depressed. She's like, well, are they getting killed? Is someone gonna shoot them? Like you've got everything. Like you've got everything that you need. How then are you sad? Like it's very hard for them to talk about their feelings.
Yes.
And it's not even them. It's very hard for us, especially me working in the mental health service. For me to actually see someone, it took probably the last 3 to 4 years. And this is me. I preach this every day, like go see a counselor, go talk to a psychologist. And I was like, wait a minute, Nyibol, have you spoken to a psychologist? Have you seen a counselor? Like we tend to hold things in just because something is not physically happening around you doesn't mean it's not you're not psychologically carrying that. So there are services who are coming up who are like culturally appropriate. And then there's just got to be like safety around safety and trust around accessing culturally appropriate health services.
As you yourself has just told us, you came from a war-torn country. You carried a lot of trauma, and this trauma is very prevalent in your community. Do you think that the broader Australian community understands that you've had this trauma and that part of what they see as negativity about the South Sudanese community is due to this trauma, this unaddressed trauma?
I don't believe the broader Australia has a good understanding that there's a lot of trauma, and trauma affects how someone's reacts, and respond.
Yes.
There's a very long way to go. We are a new community. This is not unique in terms of like we're being targeted as South Sudanese communities. We had the European settlement, the Vietnamese, the Asian settlement. There's always different migrant groups that come in, have their issues. We are just the forefront and the newest ones. So we'll be facing what is going on right now. But it takes the government, the community to work collectively to understand. If in the ideal world, I wish when we arrived here, we got settled into Australia, and then if a psychologist approached my mom or just to unpack what it is that had happened, maybe it would have changed. Maybe I can't say, but maybe it would have changed how to then cope with this new environment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've read, Dan Adut, the South Sudanese lawyer in Sydney. He wrote a book, Songs of a War Boy, and he described how, as a boy, he was drafted into the army, and as a young boy, he had to fight, and he suffered a lot of trauma. And it's no different from what you've just described. And do you think that the Australian government, in helping new community migrants like the South Sudanese community, do you believe that the government has done enough in helping you as part of your settlement in Australia, and helping you to navigate the challenges of a new country, a new culture, a new way of life?
To be honest, Kwame, our settlement in Australia was actually credit to all the volunteers in my life. Like, I've volunteered since I was 15. SAIL program, which is a Sudanese Australian integrated learning, was founded by Matthew Albert, where our local pastor put an ad to Melbourne University in 2000, just asking any students who are interested just to teach a South Sudanese family English. So the volunteers started coming from Melbourne University, and they would come on a Saturday to sit down with my siblings and help. The more South Sudanese families that started coming, the more volunteers that came. So it was actually the Australian community who helped me integrate into this community. It's not the government. They may have given us housing, but it was my local community. And till this very day, I can't thank people enough. So my heart, I've got the biggest compassion because of the people who showed me, for the people who helped me and the people who formed who I am. Some of these people may not know till this very day the contribution that they had to my life, but it was the volunteers and the Australian community and the sense of community. They came, they gave us like blankets, they'll take us on excursion, take my mom shopping. They're the ones who helped us in our transition to this country. I couldn't say the government.
Yeah.
But they have a lot to do. And in
Absolutely.
terms of them working with the community, it's a collaborative work. Like, you need the culture as well as like the funding and the organizations to work together to better understand. So we do need each other in order to address the issues that we're currently facing.
Absolutely. And I do remember that there was a time when the Australian government set up a committee. It was a parliamentary committee trying to understand some of the settlement challenges that new migrants like your community were facing at the time. I mean, a lot has happened. What do you think are some of the mistakes that were made, and how do you think some of these mistakes need to be addressed? As you said, the African Australian community is the newest in Australia at the moment, and we're not going to be the last. And so we need to learn from previous waves of migrants that have come to Australia. So my question to you is that in your own experience, in your own settlement experience, the mistakes that you believe were made, do you think that the government has learned from these mistakes and that there are programs in place to address them going forward?
I believe the government now is more open to diversity, and they are more willing to listen to the communities. Like I've been to meetings which I've never seen before, where community leaders from like different tribes in my community come together and make decisions to see where the community is at and what they can do. So what I'm starting to see is the government is willing to listen right now.
That's
and
encouraging.
very
Yep.
encouraging from before, because I really don't, if you don't know something,
Yeah.
you're not expected to get it right. So it's
No.
just trial and error. So long as we're coming together, sitting on the table for the common good,
Yes.
then that's the only way to move forward. So involving community members, community leaders, and workers from that community from diverse background.
Yeah, look, and I also believe that as a community, we need to be open about our challenges and not always blame, but, engage the government, engage the community and say, look, we recognize that we're a new community, and like any community, we're going to have our challenges, and so please work with us. So I'm pleased that you think that there are systems in place to help. That you talked about your community or the broader Australian community helping you in your settlement journey. What role do you think organizations like schools, the churches, social organizations, Rotary, what role do you see for them in helping in addressing some of these settlement challenges?
How I came to be passionate about community service and advocacy for mental health is from my own experience and the people who have shown kindness. That's how I told myself that I will be like them. Like I was just inspired by how someone with no intentions of gaining anything is just willing to just help you. And that stuck with me. And I'm just like, till this very day, I'm just continuously doing what it is that I benefited from.
Yeah. And look, that has also been my experience, that if you're open, the Australian community at large has a big heart and is prepared to help. I mean, in recent times, in the media, we hear how the South Sudanese young men are excelling, particularly in AFL and in athletics, and the women doing very well in modeling, right? But it is unsung heroines like you that do marvelous work that we don't hear about, right? Now, please tell us in your own way how you believe you've contributed, you are contributing, and will continue to contribute to your adopted country.
I don't believe mine is a unique story. There are a lot, as you said, there's a lot of unsung heroes that are out there. So just doing your little bit in the society will contribute to the broader society. So I just feel that I'm very fortunate to call Australia my home, and I'm doing what I'm passionate about. If it's helping someone, that's amazing. But yeah, each and every one of us, including yourself, is playing their little bit, because Australia it's a land you've like a free go. If you want to be something, the opportunity is there for you to be. So
absolutely, and this is what I say to the young people that I come into contact with. I say to them, you're very lucky to be in a place like Australia. It's a country of opportunities. And if you're prepared to take advantage of the opportunities that this country offers you, then you will improve your life and you will enjoy a good life. Overall, do you believe that the media has been unfair to our community and that they're sometimes stereotyping us, making us appear as people causing problems in society?
What I can say to that is don't paint everyone with the same brush. Bad news is always the news that gets the most attention.
I know.
So for me, I just divert it to the people who are doing amazing, and celebrate those unsung heroes, celebrate those people who are under the radar, who are doing amazing work.
Yes. Well, look, apart from the individuals that are in the media, the sports people, the models, who from the community has recently inspired you, and how did they inspire you?
That's very hard because there's amazing people who are doing great things in my community and just in the broader African community. But at this stage, I would just like to shout out Nishan, who is the founder of Nas Recovery, which is like a rehab mental health organization, which is focused particularly to help like African and people of diverse backgrounds. So the organization is new, but it's just doing incredible work. I sit on the board for Nas Recovery, and it's just a vision like just for change and culturally safe practices for the community, and just to break the barriers and the stigma around mental health, reaching out to the aunties and the uncles. As much as they think they're tough, being tough and holding it in is killing you. So it's just a safe space where they could just come and just unpack what it is that is happening to them, but it's open to everybody.
And what is the background of this individual that has inspired you so much?
I've known her since we were 16. So we have spoken about like the struggles that we're seeing in the community, and then like walking, for example, like being in Footscray, because I grew up with a lot of people that I do see in Footscray, and when I came back from the Northern Territory, my heart would break. Like I couldn't walk without crying. Like when I see someone, I'm like, you're hurting. Why are you hurting? Instead of looking at them and saying that they're a junkie. So she sat there, and I was on the same boat to say, all right, we acknowledge that there is something going on, but why are we not the ones driving this? If you see that there is an issue here, then be those organizations, work in those organizations to drive change. So that's how NUS came into form. So, but there's a lot of incredible organizations who are doing incredible work.
That's fantastic. Yeah. I'm really inspired by that and encouraged by that. I often toy with the idea that, it would be a good idea for us to have our own culturally appropriate aged care system, where, we have Africans looking after older African people in a culturally sensitive way. Do you think this is a good idea?
I think it's a fantastic idea. The reason why I'm saying it is my grandma, she's the strongest little old lady I've ever known. And at the moment, her health is like deteriorating. And we care for her at home, so we take turns with her. Yes. In our culture, we don't even know much about aged care, and it's almost like it's never heard of to put your mum or your grandma in aged care. If there was a facility like that, I think my grandma would thrive, where she can eat mala, because all she knows is our cultural food. And to put her in an environment where she's not familiar with and it's not the food that she would eat, her health would deteriorate. So if they had something like that, I would consider it, because nowadays, it's very hard because the families work. There is no time for this, so the sacrifice is there. But if there's a facility where you're just like, you know what, she's safe there, and she's going to be well looked after, and I have a peace of mind, then that's a fantastic idea, because at the moment, we're caring for my grandma.
Yeah, I think that was one of the cultural shocks I had when I first came to Australia and realized that older people are not looked after at home. And that, at some stage in their life, when they really need the love and care of the family, they're sent off to aged care facilities. And we know, from the media, we know what goes on in some of these facilities. And I think that is what gave me the inspiration to start thinking about, hey, wouldn't it be a good idea if, as an African community, we started thinking about something like that? Because, look, we're all getting on, and at some stage in our lives, we're going to need to go somewhere, to be cared for. And wouldn't it be a good idea if we had, African aged care facilities where, Africans are trained to look after their older people, in a culturally sensitive way. So, in your experience, how do we make this happen?
Oh, you're asking me the questions. I think I have the answers to it. The decision to put your parents in an aged care or your grandma, it's a very hard decision regardless of what culture that you come from. Like, we live in an age where like the cost of living is just crazy, and it's not everyone that has the luxury to stay home and be a full-time carer as much as they would like to.
Absolutely.
So how would go about that would just, you just let me know, because I wouldn't even know how to go about that. But everything that we have in this world, it starts off with an idea and then you just go from there. So it's just throwing your idea, you came up with it, and now it's just putting it out there and just see what that would look like first.
Well, I'm encouraged by it.
Yeah.
And now that I have all your support, I'll start
ideas, I will come.
working on it. And it's heartening to know that, you're working in that space already, and you are on the board of an organization that is looking at some of these issues. So
I can just add to that. There's a lot of a lot of my aunties and uncles that do work in aged care, that do get their certificate and are aged care workers. So there's a lot of workers who are trained and come with cultural background. So getting workers is just, it's very easy to just reach out to the community, because we're big and we're very small. Like, I could go walk down in Footscray trying to like blend in, and someone would be like, "What are you doing in Footscray?" And they're all the way on the other side of town. Like, hey, who's watching? So very small, but big and small at the same time.
Yeah. How can, the older generation, me included, how can we mentor the younger generation in a way that inspire and encourage them to bigger things and assume leadership roles in the broader Australian community?
Finding maybe a young person in the community where you could just call them and just check in on them and build that relationship, then that work could be done. I see there's a lot of successful African community members that are doing incredible work, but I always bring up, please just be a mentor. I know that everybody is so busy in their life, but mentor doesn't mean putting an hour aside where you have to go meet up. It could just mean, hey, checking in and just being consistent with anyone that you might find in the community, because you don't know how that little conversation would drive someone or inspire someone. So just taking that leap to say, all right, hold yourself accountable to say, all right, I've come with all these experience. I'm here like this. How can I then give back without thinking it's almost gonna take up time in your space? But it could just be as simple as, hi, or do you want a coffee? Because these young men do need to have role models. And to say, my passion a lot has to do with the young African males. A lot of like our fathers have died in the war, and a lot of them lack male role models.
Exactly.
So if there are some out there, just reach out. Reach out and just check in.
Yeah. I think one of the challenges we have as a community is that, we're seen as, well, some aspect of Australian community see us as one country, Africa as one country. But as I always say, there are over 56 individual countries. And each country has its own culture, its own language. And I think that these divisions or differences, I should put, differences in the different countries in my view, working against us achieving, bigger things in Australia, instead of coming together as an African community to do things. You hear of, the South Sudanese Association, the Ghana Association, the Nigerian Association. I've never heard of, an African association that sits on top of all these country associations and be thinking about, the big ideas, the big picture ideas, like we've just talked about. How do we create, an African aged care facility that can look after all of us? Well, compared to me, you are a young African Australian. Now, how do you picture our community to be in 20 years' time?
I just picture my vision is like integrated African Australian society where everybody comes. Not just we just can't do it alone.
No.
We're part of this country.
Exactly.
We are contributing to this. So then how do we, as different, we're coming from different diverse background, how did we then integrate that into this, into our new country?
Yes.
Yeah. How we do that is having conversations, uncomfortable conversations, holding ourselves accountable to what is going on. And in saying that, we work collaboratively with the country which we live and serve in.
What are your aspirations for the future?
I'm very passionate about helping people, being kind, and then just live a content life, and giving back to the very people who gave to me.
I mean, listening to you, you sound more Australian than South Sudanese. What aspects of your South Sudanese culture that you're most proud of, that you want to hold on to, while at the same time you become part of the broader Australian community?
I speak Dinka. I still speak Dinka very fluently. Actually, I thought I did speak Dinka fluently until I went back to South Sudan.
Yes.
To realize my Dinka was broken. So I'm still...
You're not alone.
No, yeah. So I'm still speaking Dinka, and to be able to sit down with my grandma as she's aging, to listen to the stories of how she was
Yes.
as a young girl, and hold those.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
part of my identity, to be able to go to our cultural dance and still practice that. It's the foundation of who I am.
In your view, what is the best South Sudanese cuisine?
The best South Sudanese cuisine would be kombo. Don't ask me how to cook it, because I just...
But what is kombo? Tell us what it is.
Oh, okay. So kombo is made out of okra, beef. It's almost like a stew. It's gooey. It doesn't look pleasant, but you eat it, it's the best. So it's almost like a stew, and then you eat it with it's injera, but we call it kisra.
Uh-huh.
So it's like a pancake.
Okay.
And you eat it with it. So that's one of my favorite meals.
Where can I get the best South Sudanese cuisine in Melbourne?
So there's heaps. So if you go to Footscray, there's a few South Sudanese restaurants. I can tell you it's in Nicholson Street. I can't tell you the names. I know how to get there. And then there are some in Sunshine near the train station.
Well, Nyibol, you truly an inspiration. What you've told me about what you've done, your contribution, and what you're doing to improve yourself, your community, and the broader Australian community at large. It's just fantastic and inspirational. Continue, and thank you for coming.
Thank you very
to talk
much.
to me.